So we're actually probably only gonna maybe get through like 2 of these tonight, because they take like an hour each, as far as I can tell. But we'll see. Yeah, we'll do what we did for all the others. We'll just zigzag through here. So here we go. Oop. Oh, I'm hanging out at the Holden's house. This didn't happen nearly as much. Oh shit, it's still in the auto. I wasn't reading. After finishing breakfast at the Holden's house, Hugh and Cove had retreated to his room to relax before starting the day in earnest. Or perhaps you would take it easy for the whole afternoon. Am I actually gonna get to pick that? Look at his fish. Look at the fish. Neither of you had plans exactly, so you were free to do whatever came to your mind. Oh. Yeah, I don't make plans really. Oh, he has a cactus. Look at the little cactus. You were leaning against Cove on his bed. You fiddled with Rubik's Cubes. Oh, with the Rubik's Cube Cove had around. You stood watching Cove's fish swim idly around in their tank. You sat next to Cove on the bed, toying with his hair. Ooh, he does have nice hair. You sat on the ground, doodling pictures in the sand scattered across the floor. I want to do this because I want to play with his hair. So cute. The long strands rippled through your fingers. You had no end goal in mind other than to enjoy touching his soft hair. Yep. It's so cute. They're so cute together. Even with your mind elsewhere, you could tell Cove was similarly at ease. He had his chin propped up with one hand and he was scrolling through his phone. I don't think TikTok exists at this point. A burst of laughter broke the silence, hooking your attention and bringing you back to the present. You looked at Cove for an explanation. How are we allowed to be in his room, like, with the door closed? I could say this every time. It's just wild to me. His eyes, now crinkled with mirth, were still locked on his screen. What's so funny? I like his desk. He finally looked up at you. Don't smirk at me. Dad scanned some old photos. Oh no. He drew a rectangle in the air with his phone-free hand. Printed out ones back from when I was little. He texted it all to me last night, I guess. I've been checking them out. Oh. Kitty pics of Cove that he wasn't showing me? I mean, I knew him when he was a kid. He's cute. You were looking at your kitty photos and didn't tell me? Oh yeah? Can I see? That's cool. Wanna see? It's... Oh! He's not embarrassed to show me? I mean, it's... I just wanted to look at it at first to make sure there was nothing super embarrassing. Oh, you never know with my dad. That's fair. He kept out the embarrassing ones? That's not a real dad. He grimaced. The horrors that Dad might unwittingly spring on him. I mean, what if there's a photo of me getting potty trained or something? Okay. I guess that's fair. The empathetic shudder and nodded. He laughed at Cove's fraught expression. Kid pictures are supposed to be embarrassing, that's part of the fun. I understand. Cove only cleared his throat nervously, the fear of his dad's well-meaning actions still looming large in his mind. I think you're okay. Anyway, before we forget, I was laughing because I came across the Halloween one from when I was 8, the year I was a zombie, remember? Oh, I guess that would have had to have been the first year we knew each other. He shook his head, grinning wearily, while holding the phone out. Yes! Let me see the pictures of the baby. Oh, he's so cute. I never even liked zombies. All I wanted was to show off my new scar. Oh! And it needed to be something scary. I couldn't be a normal person who had a scar, according to my 8-year-old mind. Oh. Only your face is painted gray, though. Heyo! Yeah, I saw it. Dad really wanted to be useful. As usual, he came up with the idea of being an undead person. It was pretty good. I guess so. Man, I was so jealous of that look. It was good, but my costume that year was better. Liz was so grossed out, and Scylla was terrified. I thought Scylla moved at the end of the summer, not the end of that year. Continuity errors? I remember you getting lots of extra candy when adults realized your scar was real. It was hard seeing your arm like that. I don't really remember. It must have been your greatest Halloween haul ever. Cove chuckled at your reply. I can't believe how much larger my scar used to be. He looked down at his arm, a soft smile on his face, and traced what remained of the jagged line with his fingers, just as you'd seen him do countless times before. Yeah, because you drove a fucking ski thingy into a wall. You crashed it. His voice was playful when he spoke again. Look at how tiny it is now. How am I supposed to pretend to be tough without a big scar? Cove. Cove, you've never fooled anyone. You were relieved that he accepted and even liked his scar. It was a definite blow to your street cred. It still looks cool. You better not do anything stupid to get a new scar. You sighed in a long-suffering way. I think it still looks cool. Cove smiled bashfully, pleased with his joke, ducking his head, looking away from you. His fingers are still tracing the scar-patched skin. As long as I get to play with his hair, I don't care. Do we have more pictures? I really do like having this, even if it's kind of little these days. You're really fond of that scar. It's not like it was a big deal. His voice was shy, like he was letting you in on a big secret. Cove turned to face you fully, initially letting go of his scar. He was happy. That mark was part of him and clearly held meaning for Cove. Whatever floats your boat, baby. Reaching over, you laid a reassuring hand on his arm where the scar was. Can I touch your scar? You smiled back at him. Do I need to ask? I don't think I really need to. I think we're pretty comfortable with each other. You cupped his arm with your hands carefully as your thumb ran down the outline of the scar. Along with the rougher tissue of the scar, you could also feel goosebumps on his arm. Actually, like, scar tissue, for the most part, usually is, like, pretty soft. It's just, like, around the edges it kind of gets lumpy. Cove let out a choked breath, a dizzied smile playing on his face. It was evident that he liked the feeling. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my god! That's so cute, though! Yes, I want to be super cute. Your hold shifted as you could bring his forearm to your face. Cove quietly gasped as he realized what you were doing, and you tenderly kissed that old wound on that marked him. Oh, it's so cute! Cove squeaked at the feeling of your lips on him, and it was in that spot in particular, but his expression was overwhelmingly one of adoration. So cute. Cute babies. Cove couldn't stay still, and reached for you himself with his free hand, his fingers brushing against your cheek. He leaned forward, eyes gleaming. You automatically began to match his movements, pulling nearer to him. Yes! Watch his dad walk in. His cheek burned red as he closed the gap between you, his mouth gently meeting yours. Aww! You held onto his arm like a lifeline as you kissed him back, briefly worried that you might drown in the depths of your feelings. Whoa! When you opened your eyes, meeting Cove's, and knew what the feeling was, that the feeling was mutual. We haven't told each other that we loved each other yet, I think. He laid his forehead to rest against yours. You felt his hot breath tickling your face. Yeah, I don't think that's something we've done. That's gonna happen eventually. Time couldn't register in that moment. It could have been seconds or minutes, but eventually you straightened up, lifting your hand from his scar. Can I go back to playing with his hair? I want to braid it. That seemed to break the spell. Though he stayed close to you, Cove sat up and came to his senses. Lame. Your eyes drifted back to the scar on Cove's arm. The scar had been there as long as you had known Cove, though when you'd first met, it had been concealed with that neon pink cast. Want to hear how I managed to go jet skiing when I was 8? Yes, we never heard the whole story that you just crashed a jet ski. You were initially stunned that he'd guessed what you were thinking, though given the topic of conversation and the direction of your gaze, it was a natural conclusion to reach. Not bothered by your reaction, Cove continued with a shrug. I don't mind telling you, it's nothing special. I mean, you stole it, I imagine. He rubbed at the back of his neck, grinning sheepishly. Mostly it's just really dumb. Yeah, you tried to get on it and give it a ride or something, probably, and crashed it. You nodded. That was something you'd like to hear more about, especially knowing that no lasting harm had come of it. Well, yeah, I mean, his arm is broken, or was broken. Cove stared into the distance, lips parted as he'd readied the story in his mind. So me, my dad, and mom were at a party. I don't know if it was a casual get-together or a specific celebration. Your memory's a little messed up from crashing. I hope it wasn't for something meaningful considering how I ended it. He winced and then managed a bashful smile. Anyway, my mom and dad were off doing stuff, talking to people. I guess I was left with the other non-adults. Most of them were older than I was. Maybe all of them were? Oh, so you were the youngest. Did they dare you? His brow furrowed as he tried to recall dusty memories, and then he shrugged again and continued. The older kids were taking turns on the jet skis. There weren't enough for everyone to ride at once, so in between turns, they would hang out on the shore. And you wanted a turn, right? I was meant to just sit there with them and watch, because you were too young to drive it. Remembering when you first met Cove, you bet that he hadn't been satisfied with the arrangement. He confirmed that suspicion. Yeah, he doesn't really like being left out. I was pretty unhappy. It wasn't a party for me, not when all I could do was look at other people having fun when I couldn't. Teens must have realized that, though I never hid when I was pouting as a— You don't hide that now. Only when you were a kid. Cove bristled with embarrassment, looked pretty sulkily at you. I'm sorry. Just teasing. Come on. Cove sighed, letting go of the interruption and picking up where he... Basically, someone offered to let me ride. With them? I was way too small to drive it myself, but this older kid, they must have been at least 16, said I could sit in front of them while they controlled the jet ski. Sounds good. I knew I wasn't supposed to do anything like that. Still, I figured my parents were doing whatever they wanted, so why couldn't I? Well, because you end up breaking your arm in this story. I nodded at the person. I remembered the other teens helping me onto the jet ski along with the one driving. We sped off into the water. How did you crash it, though? Is the teen okay? Cove smiled wildly and wistfully. It was amazing. At first, my hair was flying everywhere as we zoomed around the shore. I loved being out in the water like that. Too bad it turned out steering a jet ski with an 8-year-old sat in your lap was harder than a bunch of kids figured it would be. Fair. The teen tried their best, but they couldn't keep control for long. We got spun around and went right into the sand. Oh, you didn't crash it then. They did. The other person wasn't hurt. Thankfully, they held onto the bars and stayed in their seat. I didn't. I was thrown at full speed into a rocky part of the shore near the dock. I must have tried to brace for impact or catch myself because my arm is what I mostly landed on. Ooh, ow. He looked down at the limb in question. You could see him visualizing the long-healed injury. It was pretty torn up. After that, it's hazy for me. I got taken to the hospital. I didn't feel a lot of pain when it... Yeah. The adrenaline, I imagine. Or the shock or something, it just shuts down. All I remember thinking about was how I was covered in sand, and the grains were uncomfortable. The sand was uncomfortable? I know, right? I did start feeling my arm later. It definitely hurt eventually. Yeah, once everything I imagine that has to be sore for a long time. The doctor said my arm was broken, along with being torn open. That's how I ended up with my pink cast. Ooh. Ooh. He smiled nostalgically. Okay. That color, it seemed just nice and happy at the time. It brightened the mood, so I picked it. Aw, that's why it was pink. The smile faded. He finished the story with a sigh, his eyes downcast. I feel bad I did any of that. I hope whoever the teen was, they weren't traumatized by seeing a little kid go flying into the ground. They were just trying to do a nice thing. Aww. It's not entirely your fault, baby. It's just as much their fault. Cove threw arms out to the side dramatically. I wish I knew who they were so I could give them a call and say I'm still in one piece. But yeah, that's the full story. We've known each other for so long and I'm only just now hearing that full story. I'm so glad you're both okay in the long run. Shit, there we go. I'm really sorry that happened. You laughed at what a terrible idea it had been. How could you be so reckless? You didn't know how to react. Yeah, I'm glad you both ended up okay. That's the important thing. Cove sighed again, the regret written plainly on his face. It was a failure. That's just the truth. Woo. But to my credit, I think I've grown a lot since then. Yes. Indeed. Wait, what? Cove eyes went completely wide, suddenly reinvigorated. He seized his phone and tapped away at the screen. Do you have pictures? I'm so confused. What's up? I knew it. You weren't sure that he'd heard you, but he set his phone down and turned to face directly at you. What? What? His face was resolute. Though the glow of the screen was no longer reflected in his eyes, they seemed to sparkle with even brighter than before. I'm so confused. Little, we're adults. We can decide things for ourselves now. Okay. Okay. How do they know what how do they know that these are my answers? Where's this going? This can't be going anywhere good. I like where this is headed. Okay. The age requirement to rent a jet ski in California is 18. We could totally do it. Yes. No. Let's use our adult powers for jet skiing adventure. You want to break another bone? There are more exciting things adults can do. You were silently shocked. I don't want to like that. I feel like my answer would be like, I guess so. Cove pouted, his lower lip jutting out, which didn't back up when he said next. Come on. I'm not a little kid, you don't have to worry. I'm worried about me! Within a moment, Cove had recovered and returned to his serious expression from before. I'll be careful, and I really want you to be there when I try again, please. His voice was soft and earnest. You could tell how much the request meant to him. Okay. You also knew him enough to know that he wasn't going to give up on this idea. Letting him go on his own wasn't an option. I can't have you running off by yourself. I'll go, without any hospital trips. Cove perked up at once, a grin stretching across his face. He was practically bouncing in place. Okay, I'm scared, but that's fine. I'm scared for me, not for you. I'm sure you're fine. You got up and worked as a team to gather everything needed for the trip. Cove's other aquatic hobbies came in handy. He was quickly kitted out with everything he'd need other than the jet skis themselves. Sure. Are we wearing wetsuits? You needed to run back home briefly, having dressed and prepared for the day that didn't involve jet skiing, but soon enough you were both ready and jumping into Cove's car. The boy has a car. So nice. As you got in, you learned that Cove had used the brief time apart to locate a rental store with his phone. You caught his eyes and you clicked your seatbelt into place. Excited, you held out your hand. Cove slapped it with a high five before setting off. Little mischief makers, we're going to get into an accident. You and Cove soon arrived. The ocean was perfectly inviting today, the deep blue of the water glittering under the clear sky, while the tide rolled in and out as at its... I can't speak. Oh, look at he's so cute! You were just as pumped as he was. His excitement was adorable. You felt a little worried. You felt a chill of fear. His excitement is adorable. Seeing how pleased you were, Cove grinned at you. He's so cute. Hey. Want to say hi to my dad while we're here? I've already texted my mom about the plan. But she's nowhere near. You told her before you told him. He's working right now. You remembered how close the shop was. It wouldn't take long even by walking. Yeah, we'll go say hi to your dad. Sure, we can do that. Mr. Holden was a great guy, so you were happy to check in on him. He's a great guy. We like Mr. Holden.
Sorry.
Thanks. Sorry, it might be kind of awkward when he hears why we're here, but it should be alright. I mean, my parents forgave me a long time ago for that amazing stunt. It's not entirely your fault you were 8. The teens should have known a little bit better. I don't want to be scared off jet skiing for my whole life because of that. You wondered which of you Cove was attempting to reassure. Oh yeah, are you worried? I thought you were excited. It was only a short walk back down the dock to Mr. Holden's scuba shop. Can we go scuba diving, actually? That'd be cool. Cove breezed in, as familiar with the store as he was with his own home. The place was quiet, empty aside from a couple of customers quietly browsing and Cove's dad behind the counter. Hi, Cliff. Mr. Holden looked up, his friendly expression spreading to a grin when he saw who had just entered.
Hey!
Hey, little. Hey, sport. What brings you all the way out here? Look at him, he's so cute. He cast an eye at the way the two of you were dressed. Judging by how you're decked out, I'm guessing scuba diving? There's plenty here for that? And what can I do to help you with? I wish we were, that'd be cool. Cove chuckled, amazed by how quickly his dad seized on the favorite topic. Or maybe it was how his dad always fell over himself trying to be useful. You're great. Hi, Dad. We're not doing that this time. We sort of decided to go rent a couple of jet skis. Oh. The phrase jet ski had set Mr. Holden's mouth to its hotline immediately. Oh, trauma. Jet skis. He echoed the words as his eyes instinctively darted to the scar on Cove's arm, which you can't see because he's wearing a wetsuit. That's when. Mr. Holden started to speak several times, which each attempt quickly abandoned. Cove smiled encouragingly, trying not to add to his father's worries. It's fine.
Don't worry about it.
I promise I'll be careful, and Little will be there. That's not reassuring. I don't know what I'm doing. We always look out for each other. That's true. Mr. Holden pinched his face back into an unconvincing smile. Alright, you're a whole lot bigger now than you were back then. Heck, you can drive a car and it. Yeah, that's true. He is driving a car, which is way scarier to me. I'm sure you and Little will have plenty of fun. Yes! The worry still echoed out of his voice, barely concealed by the positive words, but Cove was buoyed by his father's support. I mean, he's not really going to tell you no, you're 19. Yeah, well, we're all set. We only stopped to say hi and let you know since you were over here. I want to go scuba diving though. Mr. Holden beamed, obviously moved by his son's simple consideration. Scuba diving would be cool. You're so thoughtful, thanks for taking the time. I'm actually surprised there isn't like a scuba diving section that I've seen so far. Dad, you don't need to thank me for that. Mr. Holden simply laughed at his son's response. Because that would be really cute considering we have complete access to that and excuse to do it. It'd be great if you could keep me in the loop while you're out there too. Just text me and let me know if it's going well or anything. I will. I don't know if it's really a good idea to bring our phones out there. His dad smiled more easily.
Great.
I mean, I guess we have to secure them. Cove rubbed his arm, causing Mr. Holden's eyes to momentarily twitch back to his childhood injury.
Bye.
We're gonna head out. See you later. Take care. They're so cute, though. Mr. Holden waved you off as you left for a stroll. The pair of you headed back to the docks, walking side by side. It must cost a lot to rent these. After your feet hit the boards, Cove's pace fell. Glancing over, you saw him looking down over the water. That wouldn't have been unusual if his expression hadn't been so well, no, why? He wasn't geared up with anticipation or even nervousness, but with an uncharacteristic lethargy. Something was weighing heavy on his mind. What? What's up? He blinked, startled by you interrupting his rumination.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. He sighed, though you'd torn his attention from the ocean. It gradually drifted back to the water. You cleared your throat, unwilling to lose him again. Are you good? He put his hands to his face, rubbing his eyes wearily. Here we go, thinking everything's resolved with what's happened and we can have fun, but I can't just enjoy anything. I had to find something else to get stuck in my head. What happened? I'm so confused. Are you good? You're having second thoughts?
No.
No. Okay. The ends of his lips were drawn to the beginning of a frown, like gray clouds clustering to signal the coming storm. Okay. I figured my dad would be a little worried about me doing it, but what he was saying, it wasn't what I expected. He was so sad. It was more than nervous. Oh. I think he feels bad, and now I feel bad, but it isn't as if I'm the only one who ever does something stupid or gets hurt. He's just worried. It's not that... I don't think it's that big of a deal, baby. It got me thinking about that whole time. That's when I realized I wasn't long after the accident that my parents... Oh. I'll say nothing. As a kid, I didn't think about the consequences of my actions, you know, or how what I did impacted other people. Like, why should anyone care? I'm the one doing it, not them. It made no sense, and I still cared when other people did things I didn't like, but I was 8 and mostly just mad that nothing felt like it was in my control. Okay. You could tell that he was building up to something, but you nodded for him to continue. It's pretty difficult to deal with because of that attitude, but looking back, I think that's what saved me from something a lot of kids go through. Blaming themselves for their parents' divorce. Oh yeah, I guess you never went through that phase. It never crossed my mind that anything I did made a difference on my mom or dad's relationship. Well, they would do what they did no matter what. Okay. Now though, I guess it's kind of hard to ignore that thought. I mean, it's way... Oh, okay. Their situation was already so hard and I wasn't a good kid, so... He let his words drift adrift as he looked down, the conclusion unfinished. It was silent between you. Building for a second, Cove pulled himself up to his full height, his chin held aloft. Whatever he decided, he was resolute. I'm going back. I've got to talk to my dad. I'm not going to let things be like before, where I just felt crappy. Okay, it doesn't work for... Okay. This took a turn I didn't expect. You can go ahead if you want, I won't mind. I still really want to do this, and I'm sure it'll be okay. I'm waiting for you. I want to stay with you. I came out to really hang out with you. We're always looking out for each other, remember? Cove smiled gently, having wanted that deep down. Yep. Thanks, let's go. You and Cove retook your steps down the docks once more, heading back to Mr. Holden's... Also, he's working? Maybe now isn't the time, actually. The customers you'd spotted in there before were now leaving the store, new bags clutched in their hands. You hoped that this would mean Cove could have his conversation without public audience. Yes, this is a bad time to do this. Maybe we should wait till tonight. I know part of Cove's thing is that he can't. He has to know in the moment, but that's... This time, Cove strode inside the shop with purpose. Mr. Holden, still at the counter, glanced up to greet whoever had just come in. He grinned as you approached. Uh-oh.
How's it going?
Hello again. Forget something? Sort of. Cove had reached the counter by now. You needed to rush just to keep up with him as he crossed... Yeah, because he's so much taller than I am. It's like real life. Mr. Holden raised an eyebrow, taking in Cove's shift in attitude, and chose his next words with care. I love people picking up on, like, Cove. Like, all of the people who know him. It's nice. Is everything alright? Cove swallowed, not answering initially. Talking openly with his dad was still something new for the son. You knew that he was struggling with the right way to begin. I wanted to ask about what happened. Mr. Holden winced as if the words had struck him. Oh, he knows exactly what he's talking about, okay. The accident? No, the divorce! The pained expression fell from Mr. Holden's face, wide-eyed, his jaw slack. He gaped at Yeah, we never knew exactly why they fell apart. We were just given hints that they didn't quite see eye to eye all the time, but they got along. Cove glanced over his shoulder at you. As your eyes met, you saw him draw confidence from having you by his side. He turned back to his father. I want to know the truth. His tone was grave. Did me getting into the accident hurt your marriage? If I hadn't done it, would you and Mom have gotten along better? I don't think that's really what it is. Like, there had to be problems already. No. Hell no. Mr. Holden squashed the suggestion with a gravity you'd rarely heard in his... Yeah, I've never heard him say that. You were 8 years old. You're not responsible in any way. Kira and I should have protected. Yeah, they weren't watching their kid. I feel like that's kind of where that came from. I can understand why you're feeling that. What happened was so horrible. How could it not have an impact? It did. Yeah, it was that neither of you were paying attention to him. It was a reflection of us as parents. The relationship between just your mom and me was separate and already unsalvageable. Mm-hmm. Cove turned away, his brow still furrowed as he looked at the floor. Maybe I'm being anxious and it's taking over, but it wasn't just then. I always caused problems. He plowed on, unwilling to give up without explaining his worries. What if I'd been easier to raise, or if you'd had me later on, maybe even if you didn't have me at all? Whoa, baby! No! If I didn't have you, then what good would my life be? Oh. Mr. Holden didn't let the words hang unchallenged in the air for even a second. He hurried over to Cove, taking his son's arms in his hands. Oh. Cove, listen. There's only one person to blame for things not working, and that's me. I'm sure Kira is to blame for some things. Cove opened his mouth to speak, but Mr. Holden forced on, determined to erase any question in Cove's mind. I'm not saying this to dishonestly push accountability off from someone else or to throw a pity party for myself. You want to know the truth, so that's what I'm giving you. Okay? Your father is the reason our family couldn't stay together. Explain. You think you caused trouble? You should have seen me at your age. You're such a good kid. I could hardly believe how good you are. Aww. Are you gonna explain in detail what you actually got divorced about? Mr. Holden's eyes were misty as he squeezed his son's arms. I'm so curious. I want to know. There's nothing, absolutely nothing, you need to blame yourself for. I'm sorry, Cove, to you and to Kira. It's usually like a miscommunication thing on both sides. Yeah, your mom. His pained face erased slightly at the bittersweet smile. Kira, she was just so smart and driven and completely bursting with life, it was as if she could do anything. You know, there wasn't a single solitary person who didn't want even a piece of her attention just to catch her eye for a moment. Mm-hmm. But for some crazy reason, she had a soft spot for my 17-year-old screw-up self. That's when we first met, though it definitely took some time before I managed to ask her on a date. Fair. Mr. Holden shook his head, the smile melting as his recollection became solemn once more. And then we'd only been officially together for 6 months when we found out that we were having a baby. I was so worried, so scared, but she was so brave. She was my rock, but we both knew the road ahead was going to be rockier. When we got married, I didn't see it as a dream come true. I wasn't about to start living my life in the only way I could imagine. The only way I can imagine doing so. I thought what happened, happened, and throwing my cards in with a girl like her was worth the risk. He grimaced, the sentence souring in his mouth, regretting his past perspective. I'd been taking care of myself on my own and getting by, then all of a sudden I was going to have a wife and a child. Okay. So I thought, alright, I'd better step things up and take care of all of us, and that's what I did, sort of. Okay. I made money, kept a roof over our heads, and put food on the table. Yeah, you were the cart driver. But I was always busy, focused on taking care of things that I didn't stop to consider what everyone else was thinking and what they actually needed. I made every decision about what I did, and as a result, what happened to the family, by myself. And never asking what your mom felt or even wondering if she might have an opinion. Okay. I'd tell Kira about the great place I'd found and how we'd be moving there in the same breath. Or that I'd spent all our savings and taken out a loan to start this business we're standing in, and even more nonsense, anything I felt I needed to do, I did. Okay, I see. Kira couldn't even ask where I'd been all day without me rolling my eyes like she was there being a nag. I was making sure we didn't starve, obviously, right? Couldn't she trust me? He sighed, his head hung low. She went to school part-time while raising you, really knuckled down, but that didn't matter to me back then. She could have spent her days laying in bed, not dying, and I would have felt the same. I didn't care. I was going to get it all done on my own either way. Okay. It's so stupid. I admire her more than anyone when there was nothing at stake. Yet as soon as responsibilities were involved, I couldn't let myself rely on her. He combed a hand through his hair, searching for an understanding of his own younger self. I'm not even sure why. Maybe I had something to prove. Maybe I'm the one who didn't trust her in the end. She had to spend every day mentally weighing the pros and cons of putting up with my horrible ideas for the sake of peace, or trying to explain my blockheaded self what I was doing wrong. It must have been so stressful and frustrating, constantly having to let everything go, because I was stubborn and absolutely would not make a fight out of it. I was definitely stuck in my head a lot those days. Our relationship at that point was made of arguments and cool tolerance, but I still genuinely didn't see the divorce coming. We'd made it through the first few years, and after that, I never really considered it ending. It was just how life was. In retrospect, it's clear Kira kept thinking on it more every year, especially because she managed to finish her journalism degree, and with us being more stable, financially that is. She thought of everything. She even timed it right when your school ended for the year, so the process would hopefully be all settled before you had to worry about class again. Oh. We were already talking about it before the accident ever happened. I know I took it really hard, being a sad sack all around the neighborhood, but even that is unfair of me. When it shook, I'm the one who got everything. Kira didn't want to leave you, Cove. She never would have. I'm certain she felt like she had no choice but to end the relationship. Business was doing really well by then, so I had an easier time making a living. She's between jobs, and when she did get a new job, it meant that she'd be traveling all the time. That's why she willingly accepted me having full custody. She didn't get to be there with her child for so many moments, and you had to spend half of your life growing up without your mother, and it's my fault. Mr. Holden closed his eyes briefly, and as he took a deep breath. So that's it, the story of Cliff and Kira's marriage. Not exactly a fairy tale, but I want to be clear. You saw his grip on Cove's. Oh, he's still holding him. Arms tighten. No matter what happened to me and her, I'd never, ever want to miss out on being your dad. Cove's throat bobbed as he swallowed, his eyes glistening, glossing with tears. Thank you for telling me. His voice was hoarse, little more than a whisper. Mr. Holden brought a hand up to his face and lightly nudged Cove's chin. You're welcome. You're a grown-up now, right? You deserve the truth. That's the least I can do for you. Cove managed a fragile smile. Thank you for taking care of me, for all of it. Aww. Mr. Holden brushed the compliment off with the wave of his hand.
No worries.
It was nothing. Look at where we ended up. I've got this whole entire store, a house, friends here, and a very thoughtful son. It's all good for me.
I'm so glad.
I'm glad. His voice was still quiet, and he ducked his head shyly after saying the words. Mr. Holden patted him on the back. You could see the tears in Cove's eyes still shining, threatening to spill over. Mr. Holden put an arm around his shoulders, gently steering him towards the door. You should go have fun, make some nice memories. Cove's gaze flicked over to you, the watery smile on his face solidified. Alright. Good, now out you go. Mr. Holden nudged the two of you out of the shop. I wasn't expecting this one to be so heavy. You both walked silently as you made your return to the docks. Cove's face was pensive, clearly still digesting everything his dad said. Yeah, it was probably going to take a while. He finally sighed, catching your attention. He hesitantly reached for the bag he had brought and raised it up. I want to call my mom. Okay. I'm not gonna leave her out of things. I want to know what she thinks and what happened to all— Ooh, we get to hear the other side of the story? I want it. He fiddled with the straps of his bag. It still remained close shut. It's not like I don't trust Dad, it's just Mom's thoughts are important too. Yeah. I get it, Cove. There's two sides to every story. There's usually more than that, but that's fine. He seemed relieved that you understood. You knew he didn't want to be a bother with another delay. Honey, it's fine. We can jet ski any fucking day of the week at this place. Thanks. Then I guess there's no time like the present time to ask. With that mini pep talk, he finally opened a bag and found his phone. Cove unlocked it quickly and tapped over to his favorite contacts. He called up his mom and put the phone on speaker as he dialed. I love the mama. Kira must have had her phone close because it answered almost immediately. Look at her, she's so cute. Cove, this is a pleasant surprise. I thought you were getting back to me later. Mama's so cute. Hi, Mom. He paused for a second and then looked at you. You're on speakerphone with Little. Hi. Hello. Oh, hello, I'm popular today. I bet you his dad just called. Well, what's going on? Don't keep me in suspense. Are you a pro jet skier already? Oh yeah, his dad already told him. Cove chuckled and scratched the back of his head. We haven't started yet. Actually, there's something I kind of want to ask you about.
Really?
Really? I'm intrigued. I love her hair. It's so pretty. Her voice was bright and excited. Cove moved the phone closer to his face so he could speak softly, aware that the tone of this conversation was about to change. I was talking to Dad earlier. It was about your relationship and why you got divorced. Ah. That one syllable had lost all of her earlier energy. Cove tightened his grip on his phone. It does make sense that the past would come up today. What's today? Yeah, but... Oh, because of the jet ski thing. He tried to brighten up the mood again. You weren't used to him being the perky one out of the two. You could only imagine it felt like a strange role reversal for him. Dad said you were really amazing. He admired you a lot. What a flatterer. She sighed wistfully and you could hear some interference. Maybe she had shaken her head. You couldn't tell for sure. Oh, Cliff. Bung yourself through regular, everyday adulting and social situations in astoundingly charming ways. Yet somehow, at the exact same time, he was an ambitious, slightly shady, under-the-table type of man when it came to making his living in the world. Yeah, that's funny. So essentially, your father was an absolute heartthrob for someone such as myself. Oh, that's so cute. Cove and Kira laughed delicately. The tension had broken into something lighter, more familiar between the two. It's cool you both have nice things to say about each other. Yeah, I mean, it's clear that, like, they were close. It just wasn't, you know, the right time or place. Do you have questions about what happened? I'm not sure. Just give us the whole story. Cove squinted at the phone in his hand and he tried to think, his free hand brushing through his hair. I just kind of wanted to know how you'd describe what it was like. Could I tell you what Dad said? Oh, okay.
All right.
I don't think Cliff would mind. Whatever he told you is probably what he'd say to me. Oh yeah, I'm sure he said the same things to her when it all happened. After taking a breath, Cove recapped Cliff's experience. Doing his best to follow his dad's story, he went into a surprising amount of detail, and not a single thing was missed. Nice. Kira listened with absolute silence, letting her son speak without interruption. When Cove finished, he took another step in another... Oh my god. So, what do you think? Kira sighed softly. You heard the crackling noise like she was drumming her nails on the back of her phone or on the countertop. That definitely sounds like Cliff. It's not exactly wrong, but he doesn't have the total picture. He puts the emphasis in the wrong places, I think.
Huh?
What do you mean? For starters, Cliff, unsurprisingly, downplayed himself more than he had to. He did? Yeah, that's what he does. His face continued to inch even closer to the screen. Like, he blames himself for the whole thing when that's probably not entirely true. Well, since your dad was so praising of me, it's only fair I return the favor. When Cliff said he was already taking care of himself when he met me, he means he was on his own. Yeah. Cliff's own parents weren't, and still aren't, friendly people. They've always had a combative relationship, though him getting into drinking and gambling as a teenager certainly didn't help. Yeah. He knew they'd kick him out at 18, and he saved them the trouble and left home at 17. He always found a way to make work, even without support. I met him a few months after that. We hit it off right away. He was exactly what I wanted back then. We dated, and then about half a year later, bam, you were on the way, Cove. She laughed fondly as Cove clung to every word. I was really optimistic about it all. I couldn't wait to be a mother. I was more than happy that Cliff was the father who'd be along for the ride. Too cute. We got married quick before you were born. Cliff's reconciliation of our wedded dynamic is pretty spot on. He was extremely stubborn and just, well, immature. Highly immature. Oh no. Her voice raised slightly, and you got the feeling she was thinking back on her memories living with him. She left the specifics unspoken. But it's not like I was grown up either. Both 17. Everyone except maybe Cliff could see our relationship was no good, or at least not good enough yet to commit to. I knew, but I didn't want to give it up. I wanted to keep the family together. I thought if we divorced, we were never together, then we'd ruin our life, Cove. Then we'd ruin your life. Obviously, that wasn't true. I just didn't have enough experience at the time to realize there wasn't only one option for us. Maybe things would have been easier on you if we had split when you were still a baby, but it took me years to start figuring it all out. Cove nodded, even if his mom couldn't see it, thinking hard about something. Couldn't see it, thinking hard about something. He was likely remembering his own experiences back then. Okay. We were married, but never seriously loved each other. We hardly knew each other. I don't mind that Cliff never viewed marrying me as some kind of dream come true. I honestly just appreciate that he tried giving my hastily made life plan a shot. I was the one who proposed after all, got down on one knee and everything. Oh, that's cute! She huffed slightly, something between a chuckle and a sigh. It's very funny and a little sad that Cliff still doesn't know why things changed between us. It's obvious to me, and I guess he does know deep down. He just never consciously made the connection. I'm not even mad he didn't stay the same towards me. Love makes everything different. But you said... I know what I said. She interrupted before Cove could even finish his blurted out interjection. I didn't mean Cliff and I. We were just kids in a relationship that only ever worked when it was at its easiest. And then you were born, little Cove James Holden. I loved you immediately, and so did your father. Cove was stunned. His eyes started watering as his mouth clamped shut. The inclination we had towards each other paled in the face of that. Our love to you was the real deal. Cliff was the proudest papa. Then, in true to fashion, Cove's eyes teared and began to fall. He stayed silent, but you were pretty sure Kira knew the effect her words had on her son. No matter how much time passed, Cliff never got over how amazing it was that such a precious little boy was his. This is so cute. I mean, it's sad, but I should have taken pictures of how he'd puff up whenever someone referred to you as his... Aw, I mean, he still does that. It's fine. It's so cute. She sounded much cheerier now. A slight smile crept on Cove's face despite the tears. Then again, he still does that now. Yep, there, see? It wasn't hard to imagine Mr. Holden lighting up around baby Cove the same way he did with 18-year-old Cove. Ooh. I remember how, whenever your arguments started brewing, Cliff had the habit of walking away to cool off. He wasn't able to handle it. His son seems to have taken after him in that way. Yep. You heard her chuckle and Cove looked down, a blush clear in his cheeks. You could just feel her smirk through the phone. She breezed over the next section airily. For our whole relationship, he always ended fights by skipping out on me for who knew how long. I don't think even Cliff knew when he'd come back. Yeah, he would just leave. That stopped when you were born. Cliff stopped running. He was still gone a lot for work, and we still had fights, but he wouldn't leave. Instead, he'd go to your room. Oh, he'd go see his kid. If you were asleep, he'd just sulk on the ground around your crib until you woke up. Sometimes he'd pace the room while holding you or sit on the floor and rock you. He'd stay with you until one of us decided we were ready to talk again. Aww. We didn't have a lot of furniture back then. That's part of the reason why Cliff was already hanging out on the floor. He really came to embrace it. When our relationship got bad enough that we didn't want to share a bed anymore, he always made sure I got to have the mattress. Aww. He instead set up a spot in the corner of the nursery just in case you needed anything throughout the night. He gave you more private space when you got bigger, but he still always made sure he could be there for you. Aww. There's still no denying whether Cliff understands or not. He made his choices without prioritizing me, but it wasn't that he suddenly hated me. To Cliff, I was only a wife on paper. In his mind, I was a cool girl he had dated and generally liked. Nothing close to being the light of his life. All his blood, sweat, and tears weren't for himself, for me, or even the family unit. They were all completely and totally for his baby. Meanwhile, I was doing the same, though in the opposite way. I did take us being married seriously. I was trying to focus us together as a couple, so we would be a complete family for our child. You felt like a fly on the wall for a very personal conversation. Cove didn't seem to notice when you looked over at him. His face was a complete patchwork of emotions. Oh yeah, I'm just kind of sitting here listening to all of this.
I guess.
Eventually, I woke up and saw what I was doing. I realized it wasn't going to work, not like that. When I was ready for it, I talked to Cliff about separating and started up the divorce process. He was shocked by it, and unfortunately, it wasn't too long after when you had your accident, Cove. Little I don't know how much Cove really told you about it, but when he broke his arm, it terrified all of us. He said he didn't remember that part. Cove could have died. Even back then, we knew he'd likely have a permanent scar he'd have to live with forever. Our parenting hurt our child, and he was the one who'd have to carry the repercussions. You were a bit taken aback to be referred to directly. You still felt a little out of place, and she'd seemed completely focused on her son. Yeah, she didn't forget I was here. I forgot I was here. Cove grimaced, and the hand holding his phone shook. Kira continued as if she'd never paused. It was heartbreaking, and then on top of all, we had to put you through your parents' breakup. Taking that back wasn't an option, despite the timing. It felt like everything we had worked so hard for to make you happy was for nothing. I choose to believe we'd fix our lives from there, but to Cliff, it seemed hopeless. He failed his son. It was easier for me in some ways. I had my family to lean on. That made it feel less daunting, less impossible. Cliff had only ever really known being on his own by the happenstance of his birth and then by choice. When we broke up, he knew he was going to have to put back the pieces of what was left alone. I wanted to be there for him even after everything, but I was the one divorcing him. It was impossible. I never managed to be someone he truly relied on, and I had to remember that wasn't changing. Aww. As bleak as it felt at the time, Cliff still tried not to let any of that show to you, Cove. He did what he could to keep your spirits high about the move, your new house, the scar, everything. So that's why Cove trailed off. He had misunderstood the impact his injury had on his parents. You were reminded of something that made more sense now. Mr. Holden had been so helpful with Cove's old Halloween costume because he didn't want Cove to be saddened by the scar. It was clear Cove was coming to the same realizations. Now with that all said, if Cliff was completely perfect and a wonderful guy, I wouldn't have left him. If it was even pretty good, I would have stayed. It was hard not to have custody. Sometimes I felt like I was a fun aunt rather than a mom. Rather than the mom I always wanted to be. Aww. I might have overcompensated a little at times because of that. She forced a laugh, but it had an uncomfortable edge to it. You could tell she was trying to blow off a very real anxiety of hers. Mama, no. Cove looked ready to say something, but his mom kept talking, kept moving forward. Still, it's not Cliff's fault alone that our relationship didn't work. We were always better as co-parents than spouses, but I knew when separating that it wasn't going to be even. And Cove, the only reason I could stand not being there for you all the time was because I knew that if the situation was reversed and I could have provided a more stable environment, Cliff would have done the same. Your dad would give up his house, his shop, even his right arm if it would guarantee that you were safe and happy. So as painful as it was, I was sure you'd be okay because you were still with someone who loved you more than anything else in the world. Cove lowered his head, tears falling to the ground. He tried to speak. It took him a few tries. Thank you for telling me. His voice cracked and Kira made an alarmed sound at the other end of the line. I'm sorry, baby. I didn't mean to make you cry. Aw. No.
I get it.
He was still crying. Everyone could tell, being physically represented or not. I love you, Mom. You've always been my mom. Not some aunt, my mom. Aww. Her tone was thick with emotion. She was at the edge of a voice break herself. She started to sniff openly.
Don't worry about that.
Don't feel bad for me with how it worked out. I promise that none of it was your fault. And it's not as though I'm completely miserable over here. I've had an incredible life with a beautiful baby boy of my own who calls whenever he can. At that, Cove's tears only came down heavier. Kira sighed affectionately, and you could hear the warmth in her voice. I think that's good for now. Maybe we should end the call. Take a moment. Is that really alright? He tightened his grip on his phone. You could see how emotionally exhausted he looked. Something tells me the jet skiing part isn't happening today.
Of course.
Of course, we'll be in touch soon. For now, you'll be able to keep thanking me or apologizing. Oh, you'll only be able to keep thanking me.
Hey.
Defensive over the accusation, making his mom snicker. Bye, and goodbye to you too, little. I'm glad you're there for my baby. Oh. See ya. Oh my god, I feel so awkward. Bye, Mom, I love you. Let his hand drop to his side, his phone brushing the fabric of his wetsuit. Went to his face, he tried to wipe the tears from his eyes. Yeah, I feel like he's gonna be too tired to do this. So we're just gonna go home, probably. His face was red and he struggled to put his phone back in his bag one-handed. You could tell he was getting worked up. Hug the boy? He finally just used both of his hands and sealed his phone back into its normal place. Cove sniffed and then reached out for you, his hand trembling in your grasp, and you squeezed back. He needed to feel your support. Hug the boy. You want to go see your dad? He didn't have to tell you what was on his mind for this. Cove nodded his head weakly. You rushed back the way you came, feet pounding across the boards of the dock to return to the scuba shop for the third time. Oh boy. It was a little difficult to keep up with him. His stride was already longer than yours, but with him almost running, you had to pick up the pace. Just put me in roller skates. Just get roller skates, put a rope around him, let him walk. You reached his dad's door and Cove still wasn't slowing down. He pushed his way through the door at full speed. There's not people in the shop, right? We're not about to cause a scene. His hand released yours as he... Oh, no. Okay. Mr. Holden had been walking around the middle of the store, checking over things. Immediately he turned at the sound. Oh god, your poor dad. We're putting him through it today.
What's wrong?
Where's the fire? He froze when he got a look at Cove's face. He worriedly opened his mouth, probably to ask what was wrong, but then Cove launched himself. Oh, hug him! Cove threw his arms around Mr. Holden's neck. He buried his face in his dad's shoulders and started to sob with deep, hitching breaths. Baby! Cliff clearly had no idea what was going on, and his hands hovered awkwardly in the air. Don't look at me. I'm just emotional support. He looked at you for a brief second, hoping for understanding before turning all his attention. Yeah, don't look at me. I can't help you. Oh, it's so cute! He wrapped both his arms around Cove's back, and Cove looked secure in his father's embrace, protected and safe. Oh, it's so cute! It's okay, it'll be okay, whatever it is, it's going to be okay. Cove kept crying. He inhaled deeply, his voice choking up when he tried to speak. You always tried to be there for me when I was growing up, and I was mean to you. I'm sorry. Ah!
What?
Mr. Holden was completely taken aback. He hadn't expected this to be the issue. You don't have to apologize for that, bud. Kids are allowed to be mad at their parents. It's my job to take care of you. I really didn't do anything special. Cove shook his head as empathetically as he could, while still tucked in against his dad. You've always supported me no matter what. You've always loved me. I wish I realized how much you did sooner. Cove squeezed him tighter. Thank you, I love you. At his son's heartfelt confession, his father became choked up as well. Oh my god, a family of adorable little criers. I do love you, I always will, you can count on that. I want to be there for you too. They absorbed in the moment, then after a little while longer, they slowly began to loosen their hold. Yeah, we might want to chill out before customers show up. I'm sorry, but yeah. This is still a shop. Cove sniffed and moved so he could use the palm to wipe away his tears. His dad's shirt was visibly damp where his face had been. Cliff patted the top of Cove's shoulders. He looked at his son with pride. You've grown up so much. Cove started to laugh through his tears, a wavering smile on his lips. You doubted that Cove would have ever thought about crying on his dad's shoulder was a sign of maturity, but it was true. Cove had changed over the years. You were glad to see Cove grow. You felt a little awkward. That's kind of true. I do feel just a little bit awkward. You thought you understood Cove's dad a little better now, too. It made you wonder if there was more to understand about your moms. Kinda. But I don't want to get into that. Your perception of Cliff had always been colored by the limited sides he was willing to show his neighbors, and then through Cove's eyes. What you had learned today gave you more of a complete picture of him. It felt like you knew him better now on his own merits. Still good, Dad. Cove wiped his eyes again. Yee, good Dad. Cove Holden was plainly touched by the words and beamed at his beloved child. Cove looked away and shyly traced his scar. Cliff chuckled and released Cove to rub the back of his neck. The earlier panic had bled off and left the confusion. I'm glad we had this talk, but what was it that made you cry in the first place? You weren't too bad off when you left before. Oh, we talked to Mom. Ducked his head further down, getting a very good look at the scruff marks on the floor. I called Mom. I wanted to talk to her about all this. He kicked one of his feet shyly, swinging it back and forth against the ground. Things felt really hard when I was younger, but it wasn't just me going through stuff, Dad. You never gave yourself credit. Cliff smiled gently and gripped Cove's shoulders with reassurance.
Oh.
Kira is an amazing person to come to my defense. For me, the only hard part was seeing you and her unhappy. Everything else, that was nothing. I love him! He wrapped his arm around Cove's neck for another side hug. Cove leaned into the embrace and glanced up at his dad. Your old man is tougher than he looks. Check out how powerful these arms are, and this is 10 years on. I was in my prime those days. A light sound full of fondness. Your dad's a dork and I fucking love him. Quieted down a little, finding a quick moment of seriousness. Thanks again, Dad. I know you don't want me to feel bad, and I'm happy because of everything you and Mom did. Have a really nice life. It's so cute. Mr. Holden's countenance became much more serious. He didn't take what was said lightly. Cove, you're very welcome. It's so good to hear. Then he let Cove go again. This time, they both took a step back to their normal proximity. Mr. Holden cleared his throat. He looked at you right in the— Oh. Don't look at— I'm just a fly on the wall at this point.
That's a relief.
I also appreciate that you were here for support. What a loyal partner. Thanks. I'm glad I could be here. I want to be here for you too, Mr. Holden. Because you're going to be my father-in-law. Thanks for finally noticing my presence. Finally, resolution. You're both so sweet. Couldn't find a way to react. Oh, I'll be here for you too. Cove's head broke into a nervous laughter he couldn't keep in. Well, thanks, but you don't need to worry about me. Too bad, bitch. I do worry about you, and I will worry about you, because you're gonna be my father-in-law. Just tag that on at the end. What did Kira say? You know what? Don't answer that. I'm not sure I want to hear. Just, that's thoughtful of you. Cliff smiled warmly. He nudged Cove gently, as if to say, look how lucky you are. Stop. Hey, maybe I ought to give you another $20. Stop. You've put up with a lot over the years. No, don't. Puff the soup. Sure, pay me. I'll work at the scuba shop, actually. I could use some money. Please don't. Not this again. You were mostly joking. That being said, you wouldn't mind a $20. I'm joking. Not you two.
Sure.
I'll leave making jokes about that to Cove. It's posture relaxing. Better get going. You still have work, Dad, and I think Little has been patient enough. Hello. Sif grinned and waved the two of you off. Sure thing, I'm happy the both of you stopped in, but you gotta go have some fun. Be careful out there. I don't need to go jet skiing anymore, Little. If you still want to go, I don't mind watching. Yeah, he doesn't want to go anymore. Well, I don't want to go without you. No way. You're a mature young man, and if you want to jet ski, then you should go out and jet ski. He probably just doesn't want to anymore. He'll do it another day. I'll still be here if you need anything. Yeah, okay. Take care of yourself. Let's get a move on already. I almost forgot why I came out here in the first place. Cove waved to his dad as he started to walk out. You followed. When you turned back to Mr. Holden before you went out the door, he was waving. Bye, kids. You'll do great. Thanks, Dad. I mean, Mr. Holden. Once again, as had become today's habit, you and Cove walked down the dock side by side, but this time, Cove had a bounce back in his step. His smile was soft, but radiant. You feeling good? For staying, I'm sorry for how long it took. You're welcome. You'd do the same for me. These things happen. I was curious anyway. It's fine. I had a feeling it'd be a bigger deal than it started as. Promise we won't have any more interruptions. You had his back and he had yours. That was just how things went between the two of you. Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful babies. He sidestepped to lean closer to you and wrapped his arms around you. You relaxed into his embrace as he held you tightly. Aww. Cuties. You hugged him back. You could smell the scent of the ocean on the breeze and it felt warm. And feel the warmth of his chest. He exhaled and took a step back, his face a dazzling smile. Hi! Cutie. The water lapped at the dock beneath your feet and Cove looked down when a particularly strong wave crashed against it. It's weird to think about my parents' relationship. There's all this stuff that I didn't know because I wasn't there, or because I was just a kid, or because I didn't even exist yet. I mean, that's just how it is that your parents are like people, and it's weird. It feels really complicated. Yeah. Relationships are complicated. I know what you mean. I feel that way about mine. Really? I mean, the two of us aren't that complicated. They're just complicated things. You agreed with him. Connections to other people were as varied as there were waves in the ocean. Okay. Cove nodded without elaboration. He looked out onto the ocean wistfully for a moment before he shook it off.
It's nice.
I'm happy they were married, even if they didn't stay together in the end. I'm glad you're feeling better. You asked about what he thought about marriage for himself. You tried to refocus on... I feel like this is actually the more accurate thing in my mind. But I want to know what the answer to this question is. Or, at the very least, if it'll, like, fluster him and it'll be cute. Speaking... Cove's eyes widened curiously as he turned to face you. Nothing. Never mind, it was just a joke. Are you scared of it because of everything that happened with your parents? Oh yeah, does this color your view of it? Cove shook his head shyly. He didn't hesitate for a second. No, surprisingly, I don't have issues with the idea of getting married someday. Cute. Don't look at me. You looked at him, not bothering to hide your intrigue. He chuckled self-consciously at the reaction he got. I'm surprised he didn't get all blushy. I mean, don't get me wrong. Trying to actually propose would be terrifying. I'm sure planning a whole wedding would be so hard. Especially for me, but... Oh, alright. Now it's getting... Calm down. Just the thought of having someone I loved that I was married to, that I'd spend the rest of my life with, that doesn't scare me. It's so cute. It makes me happy to think about. Oh. The both of you snug smiles at each other. Give it a little time, we're still 18, but I do love you, you sweetie. What about you? Would you ever want to be officially married someday? Yes, it's something I really want someday. I don't see myself ever getting married. Oh my god, me in real life. I'm not sure. I'd only get married if I found someone really special. I haven't thought about it. I didn't want to answer. Only if I found somebody really special. The only wedding you could picture was with the perfect partner, someone you loved dearly. True. You'd never get married just to be married. If you were going to get married, it would be to someone that you truly cherished. Oh. He quickly decided to change the subject after that admission. So cute. No more distractions. Let's go, it's time to jet ski. Usually I feel like well, maybe not. The two of you began to move quickly, make your way across the boards. Despite your excitement, you were both careful. Oh yeah, please don't slip and fall. You'll look stupid and hurt yourself. Neither of you wanted an accident, especially after what happened with Ko's first jet skiing trip. God, are we still gonna get to do the jet skiing? I thought it was gonna cut off. You finally got to the rental place. You were surprised at how easy the process was. I said we might get through 2 of these, it might just be the one. It took no time at all for Cove to climb on his jet ski with shaky legs. You rented your own jet ski. You decided to watch Cove. No, I want to drive with him. You'd spent this entire time wanting to jet ski and were thrilled to finally climb onto one. It was lime green with blue detailing. The jet ski rocketed slightly as you got on, bobbing in the... That would be the scariest part, would be getting onto it as you're like tilting and you're like, ah! You looked across the Cove. He sat motionless astride his jet ski, preparing himself to start it up. Let's fucking go. Just don't crash into each other. Even from your distance, you could tell his hands were clamped onto the handles too tightly. He was stiff and nervous. Aren't you given lessons for this? Don't they teach you how to work these things if you're renting them? Or isn't there certain things you have to do? Or do they really just I don't think they would just let you go out there without telling you, like, how to brake. Where the safety stuff is. Blah, blah, blah. Go, Cove, you can do it. Come on, you're really gonna chicken out now. It'll be alright, Cove. Trust yourself. He took a deep breath. You could see it rise and fall in his chest.
Thanks.
Thanks, little. He inhaled slowly and started up the jet ski. It roared to life, and you were surprised you could hear him squeak over the sound of the engine. He stopped after a few seconds and breathed again. After he'd calmed down, he started it up once more. Cove sputtered and stalled with it for a while. Going a little further each time, he knew he grew more comfortable with the feel. He continued to struggle with the jet ski, but he refused to let it stop him. He kept going until he wrangled the machine into submission. Okay. Cove eventually reached up to a point where he only stopped the jet ski when he had something to say. He kept shouting things at you. I can't wait to, like, flip this thing. Did you see that? I don't really think they're that amazing. You just drive around the water on them. I mean, that would be cool, but it's not that serious. You had gotten your own jet ski going as well. You made sure to keep a safe distance. Cove watched that you did with enthusiasm. Well, yeah, you have to keep it. Yeah, wouldn't that be a thing? Keep a certain amount of distance. Yeah, because you're gonna run into each other. there's got to be rules they ran through for this. You were relieved he'd taken it so well. Who is? You took a jet ski like a fish in water. You were nervous about jet skiing, but you weren't bad at it. You never left the start and stop phase. It reminded you of a jet skiing game you played in the past. You didn't think you did well. Probably somewhere like this. Knowing what jet skis could be dangerous, you kept a healthy caution over the vehicle. Mm-hmm. Yes. It was tricky at the start. You drove in short bursts. Since each time you made it go forward, it seemed much too fast. You worried that you were still going to fly off the jet ski would flip over. Yeah. It's like me when I first went, like, skiing. However, it didn't take you long to realize that you had a decent control over the vehicle. You grew more comfortable with the controls and let yourself relax a little. Yeah, that was me with skiing. So I took a class, but I had this habit where if I got too fast, I didn't really know how to stop myself, even though they taught me. Eventually the sun set and you had to pack up. Cove was thankfully still in one piece. No cast necessary. But to stop myself, instead of like, so they teach you like the turn your skis kind of inwards to slow yourself and then straight to get through the snow better. So I would kind of do that, but I would never slow down as much as I wanted to. Note that I was like 12, right? I was not keeping this together. So to stop myself, I would just throw myself backwards and land in the ground and just fucking pinwheel down the fucking hill. Which was probably just as dangerous because there were other skiers on the hill who could slam into me. They didn't, but they could have, and it was terrible. After everything was returned, Cove dug his phone out of his bag and texted his parents to let them know all about his triumph. An idea to take a photo to mark the occasion struck Cove, and he wanted you to join in the selfie. Yee! You got into a silly pose, you showed off your best angles, you covered your face with embarrassment, you smiled, you asked Cove now to take a picture of you. I'll just smile. You both grinned as he took the picture. It was a nice shot with the ocean stretching behind you. His phone vibrated after only a moment after texting it out. Mr. Holden and Kira had likely been waiting for the entire day to find out what this outing would go. Or how this outing would go. God damn it. With the news of his success, both of Cove's parents sent back how proud they were of Cove for how far he'd come. Yay! Next we can go kayaking. That I'm a little bit better at. Watching him grinning in the setting sun after facing so many fears that day, you felt the same. Oh my god, okay. Holy shit, hold on. So that was roughly an hour and a half is how long that took. I didn't want to stay up until super late again tonight, but I wanted to play more than just one of these. It's possible that I don't remember how long this one is. I remember it being kind of long. We'll go for one more. And that'll definitely be it, because if it'll get us to past 9, probably. Alright, I'm gonna take a little sippy. Alright. From the moment you woke up, you knew that today was going to be busier than usual. There was a list of errands that needed to be finished before the day was done. Yay, errand day. First up was visiting one of the biggest farmers markets in the area. It was only open 2 weeks out of the month during certain parts of the year. Farmers markets are cool. It was rare that you and your family were able to attend, so your moms liked to make the most out of every minute of it. And you realized it was not just them feeling that way when you heard a whistle from your left side. Heyo! This is a swanky show. Vegetables have never seemed so highbrow. Seriously, they don't mess around with their products. It's because they're like homegrown farmers. They gotta make sure that it's nice.
Isn't that great?
Isn't it exciting? Liz crossed her arms. You could tell she was amused. Look at all the parents. You couldn't have picked a more perfect trip. It's been too long since we've had a true family outing. Stop, Liz. Her teasing tone said more than she actually did. Your next-door neighbor had joined you for this day that was made it a true family outing. The three parents laughed approvingly. Yeah, we're all attached at the hip is all. Every single one of us. Out of the corner of your eye, you caught Cove looking at you sympathetically. Some things never changed, and some jokes never died. You'd long accepted that. Yeah. Same with my family. You can't ever live anything down. You were excited to check things out. You thought the trip might be fun. You shrugged, feeling indifferent. You felt uncomfortable. You were in a bad mood. This trip was a waste of your time. No! I like farmers markets. It could be fun. You smiled, trying to imagine how many stalls were set up. You were curious that hidden gems were waiting for you to discover Well, I'm ready to get started. I've got plenty of dishes in mind I could use ingredients for. Ooh, Mr. Holden's food? So good. Before your moms responded to that, they glanced at each other and smiled. Yes, it's a very good idea, Cliff. This place is much larger than it seems. It's difficult to visit each part in a single day. I mean, it's open for 2 weeks.
I got it.
I'm sure we can make a decent dent together at least. Actually, since there are so many of us this time, we could take different sides of the market.
Sounds good.
Divide and conquer, eh? That sounds brilliant. Everyone watched your moms, surprised. No one had considered that an option, but your mom flashed the group a dazzling smile, continuing with the thought. Though it's a little unfair that there are 4 Flame family members and only 2 Holdens here, so I'll go with the boys and to even out the odds.
Okay.
That's fine with me. Cliff scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. He wasn't sure where to look or what to say. It was not a problem his son had.
Oh,
I don't like that idea. Don't worry, we'll be apart for only a few hours, and then we'll have something to talk about at the end of it. After the additional nudging, Cove nodded with a sigh. He realized this wasn't an argument he was going to win. Alright, I don't get the point, but also don't mind spending the first part of the trip with Little and Ma. Ma clapped her hands together at that. Are the teams ready to go? I want to hang out with the boys. You looked from your mom to your ma. Hopefully they'd at least get to explore the market with Cove. And his dad. He perked up at the suggestion, but then you saw Mom was pouting at your request to leave her. Alright, well you can't pull that on me. Sorry, no can do this time. Seeing that neither parent was budging, you slumped your shoulders. We won't be split up too long, right? Ma hooked an arm around you and a little side hug. You grinned. Thank you, little. It's not that I don't want to be with you, Mom. It's that I want to be with you know. Taking the lead, Mom walked over towards Cove and Cliff, who were still eyeing her confusedly. Come on, boys, we're heading out. Sure. Cove, come back. Cove looked at you softly and found himself pulled forward, stopping in front of you. His expression flickered for a moment, hesitant. I'll see you later, I guess, then, baby. Bye. Oh, bye. Cove lightly took one of your hands in his and gave it a small squeeze. He dipped his face forward, wanting to kiss farewell. Yes! When instead he stopped midway, his whole— oh, are we being looked at? Are they watching us? He jerked his gaze back to your mom and you realized she had grabbed the hem of his shirt. She gave it a small Mom! Mom! Come on! Time's a wasting, Cove. I've known you long enough to be aware that you're one to linger. If I don't stop you now, you only drag your feet on parting ways more. But you couldn't let me have the one goodbye kiss? Mom! The two of you can snuggle and make out as much as you want later. We have a porn shop. Mom! Mom, no! Cove felt like a truly obscene thing to say. His face burned red, but that was ignored by him. He spoke with an unimpressed roll of his eyes.
Seriously?
Don't need to literally pull me away from little. I'm not that clingy. Mom sniggered with a shake of her head. Cove's eyebrows raised over the reaction, and he turned to Ma. She wouldn't meet his eyes as she whistled innocently. They acting sus. Liz smirked ear to ear and Cove whipped his head towards his dad. Mr. Holden couldn't offer anything more than an apologetic shrug. It was only then that it dawned on Cove that everyone did think he was that needy. No! It's me. I'm the needy one. Finally, he dared to face you with wide, pleading, "Oh, baby!" I got you. Don't make fun of Cove, who said you were allowed to say anything like that to him. Cove is totally capable of being independent when he wants to be. There's nothing wrong with being attached. It's nice. You stood in his defense, shooting them all a stern look. They were taking their teasing too far, and he was your boyfriend, not theirs. Defend the boy. And this much, I would probably come up to his chest. It's like tiny girlfriend, Angie. Your question seemed to fall on deaf ears for the most of the crowd, while Cove beamed at having your support. That's okay, that's all that matters. Bet he knows I have his back. Without thinking, Cove took another step forward, feeling drawn to you. Also again, Mom grabbed the back of his shirt. She tried suppressing her laughter, but a few chuckles escaped. Bye, baby. Actions speak louder than words. Cove's mouth twisted as he struggled to come up with something to say in his defense. He was newly embarrassed all over again. Baby! I'm sorry. I'm trying. Yeah, well... So what? That admission had Liz, your mom's, and his dad bursting into laughter. Cove grimaced and walked several steps from the group before stopping. He clearly wanted to move on, so much that he was physically moving away. He smiled softly and waved goodbye when he noticed Cove's mouth pulled into a bent smile of his own, and he seemed to feel a bit better.
See you later.
See you in a few hours. Lame. At that, Mom picked a direction and set out into the market with Mr. Holden and Cove following behind her. Grinning, Ma set them off with a big wave. Liz gave a daintier goodbye wave herself. dainty. Despite the change in plans, you were still glad to be here. You felt like the change in plans was a good idea. You felt unsure about it. You had been happy, now you were annoyed. You definitely put a damper on your mood. I think it's a little weird. But sure, I guess. You thought you would get to go shopping all together. You had been looking forward to being able to go through the market with your best friend. You had been looking forward to being able to go through the market with your boyfriend. These are both true. You didn't have something, your plans suddenly changed. You didn't like having your plan. Yeah, that's also kind of true. These are both accurate. I mean, more importantly to me, he's like my best friend. The boyfriend is just... But why are they considered different to me? I guess that's fine. You just didn't understand why you couldn't have gotten to stick with Cove. Liz noticed you were already deflating and took up the spot next to you. She elbowed you in a gesture that could only be encouraging when coming from an older sibling. Do you think there'll be any nice ginger around here? Sure. Whatever you say, Mom. We'll have to find out. You nodded plainly, not having much to add right now. Ma led you both into the busy market. Some time passed and your group had spent it browsing for the most part. There were a few stalls to stop at, but otherwise you were dragging your feet, trailing along behind Ma and Liz. At one point, Ma stopped suddenly. She put a hand on her belly and gave a half-hearted smile. I think I should have used the bathroom before we left home like the two of you responsibly did. Mama, no! Just need to be... Liz! Yes, Liz, I have to visit the ladies' room. Should we wait here? Should Liz and I go on without you? Should we all go with you? Ma craned forward as she struggled to pinpoint the direction she needed to go. She gently brushed your comment away. Okay. There's no need to worry about me for this, or waste time standing around to keep on shopping. Okay. Though actually I might need help finding my way, can you please come, Lizzie? You and your sister had to share a look over that. Why do that of all things? Yeah, why does Lizzie have to be the only one that goes? Ma, if anyone should go anywhere on their own, shouldn't it be you? You're the one needing a detour and you're the parent here. Ma giggled, unfazed by the resistance. Liz, meanwhile, tipped the brow of her hat up, watching Ma skeptically. Soon enough, Little will have to handle doing these kinds of errands on her own. This makes good practice. I'm alright. What? Ma hooked around Liz's and pulled her along. No, don't take my sister from me. Have fun. We'll find each other later. No, Liz, come back. Wait. What the fuck just happened? You watched, dumbfounded, as they waded into the crowd. They were out of sight within moments, and what started as a group outing rapidly became you, entirely on your own. Cool. You were overwhelmed, you thought, screw them. You were done with this whole trip. You felt great being left on your own. You thought Ma was being ridiculous, but you didn't really mind. You didn't know what to think. You weren't sure what ulterior motive Ma had for pulling this, but that was far down on your priority list at the moment. Yeah, she up to something. The parents are up to shady stuff. You were starting to feel happy at the idea of doing things at your own pace. Now I get to look at the shops I want to. Walk off on your own. You found a place to sit. We'll hang out. Resigned to your fate, you picked up where you left off, browsing the stalls. One hooked your attention. Oh! While most stalls were selling various garden-grown foods, this one had an array of homemade... I hope it's not too hot out. There were even vegan versions of every option. Nice. You got closer to us, but soon you drifted elsewhere. You sidestepped past a few other people and got yourself right in front of the counter for a better look. There's a wide spread, dozens and dozens of delicately cut squares and delicacies. Oh, squares of decadence. The owner smiled and approached you to explain their shop. Oh, I can tell what it is. The fudge is sold in boxes of 4 pieces. They either can be all the same, all different, or any mix you like. Are you looking to buy any today? You didn't want to get any. You wanted to get yourself a box. You wanted to get a box to share with everyone. You wanted to get a box just for Cove. I want to be nice, but I also want to get one from Cove. The whole selection was too good to share. Oh, not to share. Oh! You thought the treats made you think of Cove. You grinned, hoping he liked what you picked up. Can I get one for me too? I don't think I did that last time. I think I just got a couple of them. I want to get a box for myself. I didn't do that last time. Your mind was already filling with thoughts of sinking your teeth into the delicious fudge. There was no walking away empty-handed now. I'm actually not super into fudge all the time. I have to eat it in like small bits because it's really, really powerful. No matter what the flavor is, it's really, really strong. I'm glad you came to the right place then. For yourself, okay. I want... Where's the dark chocolate mint? That's the first one I want. Where is it? I see it on the picture. Dark chocolate mint. We'll do... Toffee? It's so fun. These choices don't really matter, but I like it so much. I get 2 more. What would red velvet fudge even be like? I feel like that would just taste like meh. I mean, we'll go for it. Sure. And we'll do a caramel one for the group. Okay. We can do the basic 3. I don't remember what everybody likes. We'll do the basic ones for the group, right? Like the basic ones and then one fun one. And they can like mix it up. This is so fun. Oh! That's fine. I think that was one of the ones I wanted anyway. Yeah, the chocolate peanut butter one. Worked out great. Okay. He does like the fruity flavors. Alright, so we got a peanut butter one, this one. We'll get him the walnut one, because I got the toffee one. Maybe we can split it. And I've been looking at the cookies and cream one for a while, so we'll get him that one. Now I have a bunch of fudge that's gonna melt before the end of the day. We're already looking forward to when you'd eat and find selection. Woo! Delicious. You couldn't help but try to imagine how Cove might react when you presented this to him. And then something for the other goobers. Everyone else was definitely going to be happy when you regrouped later. I'm nice. I got everybody nice little gifts. You paid and there was no stopping the large grin going across your face. Pivoting on your heels, you wove your way back to the center of the path. You pondered for a moment what you should do now. None of the stalls were catching your eye. No? Okay. What did grab your attention, however, was a head of familiar seafoam hair sticking out above the crowd. You knew instantly it was Cove. Because literally nobody else has hair like that, except for, like, his mom. He hadn't noticed you yet. By the way he was walking in your direction, he held a couple bags tightly in his hand. Strangely, you couldn't spot your mom or his dad anywhere. He was ditched. We were all ditched. You let him go. You called out to... No, I'm fucking gonna hang with the boy. Cove, over here. He instantly stopped dead in his tracks. Alert, Cove's head snapped up and his eyes searched the crowd until they landed on you. His whole demeanor brightened at the sight. Hi, baby. Diddle. He waved through passerby awkwardly as he attempted to get through as fast as reasonably possible, nearly stumbling more. Oh my god, you gotta move with the people. You gotta move with the crowd. It only took a moment for him to arrive. It was undeniable that he was shopping for himself. You stared at him, confused. Oh, shopping by himself. Where's the rest of your group? Cove crossed his arms defiantly, the bags twisting in front of him. Your mom took my dad and I ended up alone. Why are you by yourself? Ma and Liz abandoned me too.
What?
I can't believe this happened to both of us. It's suspicious. They planned it. They had to. But I don't know why. Are they pranking us? I don't know. And you meant it. You couldn't fathom what your moms were up to. Cove shook his head, trying to clear his mind.
So...
Well... He changed in tone, caught your attention. You watched his eyes start to twinkle with mischief as his mouth pulled into a cheeky smile. Why are we being cheeky? You know, it is technically later, and your mom isn't around this time. Oh! You chuckled knowing exactly what he was implying. That incident was already replaying in your head. We are still surrounded by a bunch of people. You hugged him, you kissed him, bashfully you nodded, flustered, you told him not right now. I don't really feel like it right now. No, I'll take it. You stepped closer, placing your hand on his upper arm. Cove beamed and leaned in. Always kiss the boy. It was quick, too quick, but you could feel his smile through it. When you both did part, Cove chuckled affectionately. So cute. I'm glad it's later.
Me too.
We're still surrounded by people though, so I'm a tiny bit embarrassed. His gaze wandered off as one of your parents might simply appear if he kept checking, and you could tell he was still processing the situation. He scratched the back of his head, looking sheepish. Do you want to forget about whatever's happening and go shopping together? Yes! I want to buy honeys and stuff. That's always what I ended up looking for in these things, because everybody always has, like, homegrown honeys, and they're always really good. And that's my favorite part of this. There's one in the area I'm in. We have a small farmer's market during the summer. It's fucking too hot to go most of the time. But, one of the vendors, I don't know if they're still there, but just sells, like, an assortment of different homemade honeys. It's so nice. It was a little care in your mind for what your moms had planned. You were ecstatic at the thought of spending the rest of the trip with him. With the boy. Cove's grin twisted into a conspiratorial one. You both knew you were going against whatever had really been planned for this outing, but luckily neither of you cared one bit. No, I don't give a shit. If they're not here to watch me, I can do what I want. So where to first? I don't mind going back the way I came if it's new to you. It's not hard to miss stuff even if I've gone past. What have you gotten? Cove shuffled his bags around and started pulling them open so you could peek inside each one. You recognized an array of things he picked up around the market. I mostly got typical things I can use pretty easily so far. Nothing super exciting. Well, I picked a few things I figured you might want to have too. There were a few red onions, some lemons, potatoes, among other things that were wrapped up so you couldn't discern what they were. You choose perfectly, thank you. What Cove brought made sense, but it was far from a complete selection. You glanced around at the nearby stalls. Want to start over there? Cove followed your eyes. You pointed one of the larger stalls. It was filled with several kinds of staple fruits and vegetables. Fruits and veggies.
Come on.
Let's go. Once a few people finished paying and moved, you and Cove got yourselves directly into the shop. There were so many things to pick from. I would be looking for cookies and shit. I would not be that I mean, it depends on what kind of... Ooh! Everything. How much money do I have? I'm always an onion person. Tomatoes are good. Apples are good. Cove got potatoes. Carrots are pretty good. And lettuce is pretty good. Cucumbers are kind of cool. You can like do fun stuff with them. You can make them into like little chips basically. You like cut them into like small little things. Put a little salt on them. It makes them really nice. I'm gonna take some. Okay. The shop owner put your selection together and handed it to you in a couple bags. Happily you paid and waited for Cove to make his purchase. Ready to go? Cove grinned, satisfied with his new choices. He had added another bag to his small but growing collection. You nodded. How do we have so much money? Like, Cove has a part-time job, but I said I didn't really too much. Oh wait, before we start moving on and everything, wanna hold hands? Ow! You held onto his hand shyly. You lifted your hand out for him to take. You took his arm instead. You offered your arm. You shook your head. Oh, I do like holding the arms, though. That's actually more efficient, is to hold the arm rather than the hands, because then the hands are free. Neat. The blush on Cove's face deepened as you stepped closer and hooked your arm around his upper arm. You held him close and met his gaze with a pleased smile. Cove was momentarily surprised, and then he chuckled, happy with your change in play. With renewed eagerness, your boyfriend nodded his head in the direction you had been going towards.
All right.
Let's go. He's so cute. Together, you and Cove wandered the market on the lookout for any stalls that caught your attention. Cove was walking around with a spring in his step, talking about the various meal ideas he had in mind. After a while, you had to go greater distances to find something of interest. Several of the stalls were selling the same goods. It was only a matter now of which you wanted to buy from. We gotta find Asian food market. So good. You continued ambling down the path until Cove stopped suddenly, literally pulling you away from your thoughts. Cove? You followed his eyeline past the crowds. Immediately, you knew what grabbed him. Homemade jams and local honeys. All the time. Every time you gotta find that fucking stall. There's at least one of them everywhere. That stall was glittering with quaint glass jars stacked high, each encasing gels of various colors. Cove's eyes were practically sparkling at the sight. Same. I don't know, I love it. I fucking love honey. His feet automatically began to take him there, likely without being fully aware he had made an unexplained detour. I mean, that's why I'm attached, right? When you got closer, you were surprised there were even more varieties than you thought. There were even different honeys based on what type of pollen the bees used. Yep. Cove's focus seemed torn between the bottled blackberry jam and one of clover honey. Get both. It's not like it stopped us before. Want some honey, honey? Did you want some honey, honey? You said, just to tease him. I wonder what on earth could you possibly want at this stall? Everything looks so good. You shook your head at him disapprovingly. Anybody who disapproves of him buying jams and honeys, the devil. Terrible person. Don't get them out of here. Cove nodded in response. His face was burning red. You grinned, way too pleased with your own joke. I've been hanging out with his dad too much. Mr. Holden, his jokes are fucking rubbing off on me. You thought things over for yourself too. All of it, baby. All of the fucking honey. Spring wildflower. Honey butter! I forgot that was in this lineup. Clover honey is the basic one for the most part. It's the most common one, I think. So, we'll go for this one. And blueberry jam sounds fun. I'll go with that. You paid and the shop owner started putting together your order. They carefully packed it in a single bag with I wonder if there's like special dialogue if you just pick everything all the time. Just the whole list. I don't think there is, but it'd be funny if there was. Amused, you watched Cove give in and just buy both the clover honey and the blackberry jam. He also went all in, getting spring wildflower honey and plum jam too. Nice. The shop owner thoughtfully wrapped each in brown paper to protect them before putting them away in a bag. He handed the purchase to Cove.
Thank you.
Oh, so cute. You both stepped away from the stall. Cove didn't fail to notice the look you'd been giving him since his agonized over the toast toppers. Toast. Hey, this doesn't go bad for a long time, so why not stock up? I could have chosen one if I wanted to. I'm not judging you. I would have taken all of them if I had the money. Alright, Cove, it'll be nice to enjoy snacking on it for a while. We can share. As you began to stroll, Cove looked up at the sky. He smiled. It was sort of unexpected, considering all of this was technically an errand, and unexpected changes often upset him. Yeah, but it's kind of fun. But he was happy, and Cove liked doing this kind of normal thing. Farmers markets are nice. Like, you just kind of walk them and you just buy stuff and don't really go there with a plan. Just get cool shit. And you could tell that Cove especially enjoyed doing these kinds of things with you. You blushed thinking about how comfortable doing this with Cove felt. You were feeling the same as him. You were just feeling down about how the trip turned out. Cove pleased attitude annoyed. Oh, no. You felt more than normal or mundane. It felt right. I'm glad you're having a good time. You're so domestic. What does that mean? What does that mean? I kind of wonder what the others are doing right now. What the fuck does... I kind of get it, but what is that? Okay. Cove chuckled. His gaze fell to his bags. He was clearly thinking about all the treats he just bought. So many honeys.
So?
Are you having fun? Yeah, it's alright. It's been a good day. When you spotted a less crowded area, you took a break from browsing. Cove started rummaging through one of his bags just to check on how his goods were doing. A smile grew on his face as he went to the next. Heyo, I'm good. He chuckled, knowing that Cove wouldn't let anything go to waste. There wasn't a single doubt he was going to eat it all. If he doesn't eat it, I will. I like food. You held a hand in front of your face as you squinted upwards. The sun had moved quite a bit. You'd been at the market for a good while now. Neither your feet nor your arms were sore right now. And Cove looked to be doing fine too, but that was something that could be coming. Did I check earlier? There was a price to pay for this much shopping. It wasn't always just in money. Oh, I saw you say something about watching somebody play Legend of Dragoon. Can you give me a piggyback ride? Could you carry my things? Want me to carry your bags? Want a pig? I am tiny. I don't want to make him carry my stuff, even though that would be nice. There was a breeze you just barely noticed in the air, and you contently sighed, happy that the weather was cooperative in the market. It made some things even better.
Hey.
Want a ride? Oh, you're offering. Staring at him, raised an eyebrow. Cove chuckled awkwardly, and his cheeks turned a shade of pink. He tried again. I mean, a piggyback ride. You could take a little rest. I don't mind. Well, now if you're offering, that's fine. Yeah, okay. Thanks, but no thanks. Could you just carry my things? No thanks. Can I carry your bags for you instead? I mean, I'll take it. Cool. Cove crouched down low so you could climb on. You pressed yourself against his back and comfortably wrapped your arms around his neck. Once you were in position, he stood. We're gonna, knock into people in this position, though. This is, a crowded marketplace. I'm gonna, kick people. Whatever, I'll take it. Your head steadily rose high above the crowds. It was lifting your spirits pretty literally. It's so cute. Cove huffed, letting out a breathy laugh. Are you okay? Yeah, just realized this means I'm the one carrying all the bags too, not just you. Oops. Should I get down? No, I've got it. Please don't drop me. Cove took a few steps and then stopped. He grinned, pleased with himself. He's strong. He big strong boy. Ready to get going? Keep an eye for any good deals while you're up there. We got the best view around. I've now been made twice as tall by this. Laughing, you craned your head up to get as high as you could, keeping your hold on him secure. Cove was right. You had a whole new perspective. God, being tall is so weird. I'm on it. Just standing on a stool sometimes, and I'm height level with some of my friends. I'm like, how do you live like this? Ma and Mom had both texted you during the trip, though only to say that they hoped you found some good stuff and they'd see you later. There were no answers on where they went or why. You and Cove continued to wind your way through the bustling market, the list of outstanding items steadily shrinking while bags grew heavier. Did they give us a list, or are we just buying stuff willy-nilly? As you had an unrivaled view of the market thanks to Cove's height, locating the produce your heart desired had been easy. How long did he carry me? Carrying every single thing purchased as well as another person made it hard for Cove to check his phone, so he made do without. Eventually, though, he'd said that he ought to check if anything important had come up. So your ride came to a stop out of slow foot traffic and you dismounted. How long? How strong is this boy? Like, ooh. Damn. Cove rearranged all the bags he was carrying, freeing a hand so that he could pull out his phone. You watched his eyes dart over the screen as he read the waiting messages. Not important. I can reply to that later. He mumbled his verdict under his breath. Then Cove's face scrunched up with confusion.
Huh?
Wait, I've got a message from my dad. Listen to this. Cove, I wasn't part of the plan. I didn't know what was going on when I left with Little's mom. Where are you? Oh, we knew they were planning something. He sent that ages ago. I didn't hear it come in. He sent another one since then, says he hopes I'm alright and that he's not bothering me. The newest one says everybody's going to the parking lot soon and we can meet up there. He lowered his phone, eyes narrowed. The same conclusion that was settling on you that had landed on Cove's as well. Yeah, that the moms had set it up. Yeah, we knew that, though. We knew it was on purpose. He lifted his phone again, staring hard at the screen. Didn't my mom pull this stunt when we were little? You know, that time she took us to the mall? Oh, it's so cool that it references the DLC. At least your mom said that she was leaving. My mom's had a plan. The mall thing was spur of the moment. Is this a mom thing? What your mom did was even worse. I don't remember. Cove blinked, a slight frown furrowing his forehead. He didn't seem to know how to respond to this. The crowd of people passing by stayed as noisy as ever, a sharp contrast to the silence that had fallen over you and Cove. He was rubbing the screen of his phone against his shirt, wiping away dust and debris. He continued scrubbing the screen long after anything could have remained. The action, a poor substitute for pushing away the awkwardness of the moment. It's fine. You felt alright about it. It's a whole mess. This whole mess was upsetting to you. You were furious. You didn't care what your moms had done. You were struggling to comprehend this. The shock was too fresh. I didn't really care. It hadn't changed that you'd done today, only who you done it with. Fine. How are they going to explain this? They can really be weird, huh?
Are you okay?
Are you alright? His voice was gentle. Yeah. That's good. Abandoning us without warning wasn't really a cool idea, even if they meant well, which they probably did. Yeah. Parents are weird. He looked you straight in the eyes. Well, as long as there aren't parents. Not making a big deal out of this is nice. I'm not exactly thrilled personally, so if you do want to complain to me, you can. I can't. I don't have anything to complain about. Maybe I'm kind of mad. I'm disappointed. You can be kind of annoying to me. What? What did Cove do? Nothing? Ever? Not right now, I don't.
No way.
Come on, you've got to have plenty of stuff to complain about just from the stunts I've pulled myself, let alone what's happened today. Yeah, but we're talking about today. We're not talking about, like, all the time. You cracked a grin at that despite yourself. He could certainly be a troublemaker when he wanted to be, but he could also be so kind. After a moment, he stepped away from you, face turned. Cove closed his eyes and took a deep breath. His brow creased, then furrowed deeper into his scowl, his arms tightly coiling around each other. Oh, tightly coiling together. So they did do something stupid. I knew it. His voice had taken an exaggerated quality, but what truly distinguished it from Cove's typical speaking tone was the abundance of rage. This is such a chore. Parents are so dumb. Why do people have to go places with family members anyway? I hate them, and I also hate farmers markets. You got it instantly. It had been years since the boy with the bowl cut had been in town for the summer, but Cove had never forgotten. I didn't get it last time. I was like, what the fuck? This is an overaction for Cove. It's because he's making fun of Jeremy. To this day, he continued to unleash his impersonations whenever the moment felt right. Sometimes he wondered if the act had grown more exaggerated over the years, or if the kid really was always that ridiculous. You burst out laughing, you shook your head at Cove's silliness, you played along, you smiled quietly. That kid is never going to live that down, huh? Not ever. Cove gave you a lopsided smile, letting the joke rest for now. Should probably meet up with the group. You didn't dally any longer, slipping back into the crowd and making your way towards the entrance of the farmer's market. It didn't take long to reach the parking lot. Your parents, Mr. Holden and Liz, were already waiting there. They waved at you both as you approached. We know you did stupid shit. Your own family seemed to be in pretty good moods. In contrast to Mr. Holden, he stared at Cove with open concern as you got closer. Hey bud, hey little, how you doing? I promise I wasn't in on it. We'd be doing better if we hadn't been abandoned in the farmer's market by our families. You saw your mom's frowning at his response. Ma glanced from Cove to Mom with blinking eyes. Just because Little is really laid back doesn't mean you can just leave her out of your plans and expect her to go with it every time. He's always defending me. It's so cute. Ma hung her head ashamed, and Mom had a hand pressed to her cheek. You could tell that they were quickly regretting their scheme. I'm so sorry, Little. It's fine. Her words were full of emotion, and Mom squeezed Mom's arm. We were trying to make an errand more of a trip, less of a chore. I mean, you could have just told us. Ma nodded. We didn't think you, Cove, and Liz wanted to be stuck trudging around the market with your parents all day. Especially not in... But you could have just told us that. Be like, hey, we're all gonna go, but you guys can do whatever you want, and we're gonna do whatever. But you're always very thoughtful and don't like to leave your moms behind, so we did ourselves. It was only going to be for the market, not the other stops, I promise. Still, you're right. We could have just told you and let you make your own call. Yeah. I really am sorry neither of us wanted to upset you. I'm not that upset. It's whatever, right? Like, it doesn't matter. All gas, no brakes. We should have known better. Ma ditched me too, after pulling her urgent potty break stunt, if that helps. I went off to do my own shopping, and it seems they planned. Sorry I didn't check back with you. I wasn't thinking and just tried to blow it off. You quietly took in their stories of what happened. Over to the side, Cove was talking to his dad. Thanks for telling me something was up, though I feel bad for missing the warning when you sent it. It's no trouble, sport. I learned my lesson about making surprise plans. Cove smiled at his dad, Mr. Holden, laughing, clapping on Cove's back. On the back. Well, we're really being outplayed today. You realized you hadn't been the only onlookers to the Holden's moment. Your moms were exchanging rueful looks. Liz had her arms crossed over her chest, patiently waiting it all to unfold. It's fine. I mean, I kind of wish you had just told me, but it's fine. We better find a way to catch up.
In that case,
Maybe we can do Little's chores for the next week. I'll take it. Jabbed Ma on the shoulder. You might be onto something, Little. How would you like the sound of that? Sounds good to me. Make it 2 weeks. You're gonna have to do better than that. I'll think about it. You don't have to do anything. I was never mad. Well, I wasn't, but I'm not gonna say no to them doing my chores for me. How do I still have chores at 18? It should be like, just do your part. Like, it shouldn't be chores as much as like, you're just doing your part of the work in the house. But whatever. That's wonderful. We'll still do better. You guys almost never fuck up, so, like, it's cool. And at the very least, we can make sure everyone stays together for the rest of the stops we're making today. You all nodded at the suggestion.
yes.
We won't let you down. We'll be the best sheepdogs ever, guarding the flock and watching any strays. We have more errands and it's like already sunset. We spent the entire day at the farmer's market. Your mood lifting despite it. I'm actually surprised it's even still open. Usually farmer's markets are only open until like a certain part of the day, which is like maybe somewhere around the afternoon, I think. She turned to the entrance of the farmer's market for one final glance, pressing it into your memory under the new light. You thought on what you'd picked up on at the market and how you were going to enjoy it later. Some things you could only get from local suppliers like this. That was another perk about coming along with the market today. Actually, you realized this would be a good time to bring out the fudge you got to share, while everyone was clustered together. Hey, wait, before we go, I've got something for everybody. The announcement grabbed everyone's interest and they looked over at you, each curious about what you had in store. You dug your hand into the bag and pulled out the specially selected treat. Yeah, the 4 of them have to share, but me and Cove get our own boxes. Haha. I saw this amazing fudge stall, so I got a box for us to share. Ooh. So sweet of you. I am the best, aren't I? The Holdens were wearing matching grins at the prospect of free dessert. Your family resembled more notable, and they mirrored each other's expressions. Sweet is the right word for this. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You don't say thank you yet. You get your own.
You're fantastic.
Can't wait to bust it open. She'd save it for tonight. You can't properly enjoy a treat when there's still chores to be done. Besides, we don't want to make a mess with it melting in this heat. Yeah, that's probably already happened. Unless those boxes are like heat resistant. The others murmured their agreement and nodded. Reaching a consensus, Jesus, you stowed the box away safely for now. Fuck you guys, I'm gonna eat mine. Hove then saddled up next to you, an eager smile on his face. You could tell from his expression that he was up to something. Mischief? Thanks again for getting fudge. It was really cool of you. I got some for you too. You knew he hadn't come over just to thank you individually, not with that huge smirk. I got something to share too, but well, only really with you. I guess I'm not as nice. You cooked up a scheme of your own. Anyway, well, I sort of picked something out with you in mind. You held a hand to your chest, staring at Cove as he explained further. Since your moms decided we should shop separately, I figured I could use the time to get you something, just as a little surprise. Ooh! He reached into one of the bags and retrieved one of the wrapped-up objects. You accepted the unexpected present. You were looking on excitedly as you tore off the paper. Sometimes the brains just don't connect the dots with the words, man. It was a coffee drink in a glass bottle. You didn't need to taste it to know it would be good. It was a boutique product. Oh, it's coffee this time? Oh, that's interesting. It was heavy in your hands, the container in smart metal cap, reaffirming the quality. Even the label, constructed from the coarse paper rather than a flimsy sheet of plastic, was distinctive. The last time we did this, he gave me, like, homemade apple juice. You were practically bouncing in anticipation, and he smiled sweetly at your reaction. It's not a big deal, but I just thought you might like it. Thanks, baby! You're so nice! You didn't have to do that. You're so wonderful. You smiled at him. You're always getting me things. You're so wonderful. I can't believe we both got each other something. You weren't the only one who had that idea. Actually, we're a real pair. His eyes began to widen. I got you something too, when you weren't around. There was a burst of laughter, first from your mom, followed by a chorus of chuckles from the other three. You'd forgotten they were still hanging around. Yeah. We get lost in our own little world sometimes. It's cute. Unfortunately, they hadn't paid you and Cove the same courtesy and had been listening in on your conversation. You weren't even apart for a whole day. And you both still used that as a chance to get each other little— Of course! It's cute! Don't tease us! It's cute! Ma claps her hand— Clap. Oh, forget it. So lovely. See, Ma gets it. A day, it was less than a whole morning. What are you on about? It's already, like, late in the day. True. I don't even want to think about what happens when you spend real time apart. I mean, we were separated earlier this summer. You reached back into the bag where you had first retrieved the box of fudge for everyone, shifting it aside to take out the other one underneath. You chuckled coolly, aware that the others were still watching you. Yeah, that's right. You can watch. You can see how fucking cute we are. The first one was for everyone, but that's not all I got. I bought a second bunch of fudge. It's just for you, and you don't have to share with anybody. Cove's face lit up, his grin stretching from ear to ear. The laughter that came from the others, who were fully tuned into your little show, didn't appear to reach him. Aww, so cute. You got one just for me? Of course I did. Cove took the box of fudge in one hand and claimed one of your hands with the other. Ooh! He used the hold he had to lead you closer to him while he lifted his hand to his mouth and pepper kisses over your knuckles. Oh, so cute! Oh, please, my moms are watching. Stop. He looks at you with eyes full of delight. Thank you so much. At this rate, it wouldn't just be your little group that knew that you'd been treating him. The whole parking lot was going to learn about it. Don't. Please. Please, baby. Please, can we go? Behind Cove, you could see Mom watching you both with a smile of hilarity. This is why he's so attached you've spoiled him. Oh, that's fair. You shouldn't make fun, Pam. It's clearly mutual. Besides, I don't hear you complaining when I'm spoiling you. Yeah, Moms. Ma pitched Mom's cheek, making her laugh as she batted the hand away. True, true. Liz clapped her hands together with the air of a teacher calling for attention. Yeah, she's like, God, these people. I just want to move on. Since the other adults aren't acting like grown-ups, the rest of us are going to have to pick up the slack. It's time to get back on schedule and continue with the rest of the errands. Playtime is officially over. Thanks, Liz. Ma laughed, and while Mr. Holden grinned awkwardly, Mom hung her head with exaggerated display of mock defeat. Kids are tough, and I can't even call them kids anymore. Liz tutted with amusement at her mother. Cove shrugged, staying a neutral observer, but the small smile on his face revealed that he was enjoying the conclusion. You laughed, glad that everyone was getting along. Yee! We're all grown-ups. Sure, I guess. With that, your trip to the farmer's market was closed. It was time to move on. There were too many of you for one car, so you and Cove had wound up with Mr. Holden's car on the way over. You figured it made sense to do the same thing for the next leg. Yes! I'll always hang out with the boys. I love the boys. I mean, I love my moms and my sister, too. You sat next to Cove in the back. Immediately after the click of his seatbelt and the lock announced that Cove was safely strapped in, he began to unfold the box of fudge he'd been given. Can't even wait. So cute. You're gonna eat now? Uh-huh. He nodded eagerly, not taking his eyes from the container. He lifted the top off and longingly admired the selection inside. Oh, I love nuts and fudge. I love nuts anyway, but the contrast between the crunchy nuts and the soft, squishy fudge is great. Yes, me and him, same brain. Is the green fudge lime? Hey, key lime. That's amazing, because it's fudge, but also fruity somehow. This looks like cookies and cream. That's a really cool flavor. You just crunch up Oreos in it, really, I think. And that's peanut butter in there, right? Yes. It's chocolate with peanut butter mixed. So good. Yee. Once Cove had finished bestowing praise on what you had picked, he promptly started sampling the selection. He was smiling, licking his lips, and having a grand old time. I'm glad he likes them. He's gonna make a whole mess in his dad's car. You could also tell from the way his nibbling was turning into munching that the box wasn't going to survive the trip to the next stop. You were right. Cove had tried to savor the treats, claiming just one more until there was only one left, and the statement was finally forced to be true. He finished the last one too. He sighed contently. I don't know how you ate 4 of those in one go. They're rough. Maybe it's just me. You're welcome. Like I said, unless they're like really small. He set the picked clean box to the side and then rested his hands on his spoiled tummy. Cove wasn't going to be hungry for a while after that. That stuff fills you up, man. It's dense. From there, you sat wordlessly, gaze drifting to the window. You knew Cove well enough to spot the signs of when he was physically present but mentally elsewhere. The way he would fall quiet, staring without seeing, the long blinks, all of which he was going right now, he looked at nothing in particular. He's just spacing out. He licked his fingers absent-mindedly, getting the last of the melted fudge off his hand. Fair enough. You were pleased he enjoyed it so much. Is it too late for a taste? I would have enjoyed a bite too. You looked away, feeling bashful over how well you're... I kind of want to tease him a little bit. Cove straightened up at the sound of your voice. His pose stiff, he turned away, his hand smacking over his mouth and Baby, it's fine, I'm just teasing. I have my own box. You were miles away for a second. What were you thinking about? Well, I was just thinking about how nice you are. How nice I am. Yeah. He's so cute. His face grew redder. As his hands clenched around the top of his knees, you stared at him, hoping for an explanation, but Cove simply ducked his head. When he next spoke, his voice was barely more than a whisper. I'm lucky I get to be with you. He's so cute. You're so sweet. I feel lucky too. You laughed happily. You blushed. His words stunned you. Splish. He peeked at you from the corner of eyes, still too shy to look at you directly. You smiled at him affectionately, eliciting an equally caring smile from Cove in return. Your dad is right there. He's just watching this. You felt content, secure in your relationship with Cove. Cute. You decided to enjoy your drink. You wanted to save your... Well, I want to try it in front of him. Because, I mean, I want him to know that I liked it. Hi, Boo.
We're starting up a raid, so I'm sorry if you hear us screaming at each other and laughing and dying.
Okay.
Okay. Just so they're aware. So you're aware.
Thanks for the warning. I appreciate you.
Because I'm going to get Joe killed. It's going to be great.
Okay. You have fun.
Because he made fun of the way my hunter looks.
Okay. You twisted off the cap and brought it to your mouth. Even before the first sip reached your lips, the scent tickled your nostrils. Coffee! Yeah, he got me like nice apple juice last time, so I guess it has something to do with a decision I made earlier. You took a swig. It was refreshing, the perfect way to hit the spot after a long morning trawling through the markets. This is great, thank you. I'm not gonna sleep for the rest of the night, so I mean, you can hang out with me. He grinned at you, pleased that his pick had been well received. Cute. You're welcome. You spent the rest of the day completing the remaining errands all together. You had enjoyed your brief independence. You were glad that you'd closed the day with everyone. It might not have come about under ideal circumstances, but it had provided you with an opportunity to spend time making your own choices. You felt that you'd risen to the challenge. Yee! That's always kind of nice. Okay, yeah, that one wasn't quite as long as the other one was. But we are probably gonna call it, because I have no idea how fucking long this one is. And I know this one I think is pretty long. I don't entirely remember what this one is about. So, a tiny bit shorter than normal today, but that's kind of the point. I'm trying not to go for forever. And then on the days I do go for forever, it'll be like nice treats. Or when we're close to being done with something, maybe. But I appreciate all of you for hanging out and enjoying this cute game with me. I was gonna say we're getting close to the end, but we're not really. I mean, I guess in the great scheme we are, but it's so long. These parts are so long, and I love it. It's so cute. And then apparently there's step 4 we have to get through, and then there's some DLC that takes place after step 4, I think. That I have to try and figure out. But anyway, thank you guys for hanging out with me as always, and I'll see you all later. Have a great night. Goodbye!